Hey everyone, Grayson with Based Theory here with another after show for tonight. We are streaming after the debate between Standing for Truth and Snake is Right on SFT's channel about genetic entropy. It was a very long debate tonight. So, hold on, there we go. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and start adding some guests in here. Just whoever wants to come and discuss genetic entropy. So, Hive Science, welcome to the after show. Did you catch any of the debate tonight?
Yeah, I sure did. I watched most of it on Snake's. Snake was doing a stream of it too, so I watch over there. Unfortunately, I couldn't ask questions in the live chat over there. I do sometimes pop into Donnie's stuff, but since Snake was streaming and I wanted to give him my support, So I did watch the debate. I think Snake did an excellent job of explaining the topic, and Donnie did a great job of misunderstanding it. So
I can vouch for the live chat that it was quite a dumpster fire. So it was fun to participate in for sure. We have another guest joining the stream here, Mark Reid. Welcome.
I was just about to name drop him too. I was like, Mark just told me in Snake
Hello.
Stream that he came over and it was a dumpster fire. So lo and behold, he pulls up.
I
Yeah, Mark,
was
what'd
the
you
main
think?
cause of the dumpster fire. I was definitely the main cause of the dumpster fire in the side chat.
Almost.
I wanted to support Snake, just yeah, and just the it's just genetic entropy isn't a thing. It isn't a thing. Like it hasn't been. Like it makes me so mad. It's sort of they sort of will take these papers and say, hey, there's a buildup of deleterious mutations and all this stuff, and then they'll just smack genetic entropy on the end of it like they've solved some puzzle. It actually makes me a little bit mad. But
Well, speaking of, I would like to see how the conversation on genetic entropy comes up. We have Praise here joining us, who was moderating tonight's debate. And he said that he had wanted to discuss genetic entropy with me. I know that he's been up for quite some time. So I wanted to ask him if there was anything specific that he wanted to bring up in regards to genetic entropy.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Grayson, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I thought it was a pretty good debate on both sides. I think both sides brought good points up. I'm not sure how. I mean, because I'm not really studied into that. I mean, I think some people have those type of brains that do the biology stuff. So I don't know really, really to score it, but yeah, I have a couple arguments I'd like to pose to you guys and see, how you would respond to them with genetic entropy. I do think it's a scientific phenomenon, but I mean, we can, whatever.
Yes, please go, Praise.
You missed one of my questions. Maybe I can put the question to you then.
Why don't you type your question into the chat? Let Praise put a syllogism to us, and then
okay, sure.
He had questions a question that we could all three answer. I think that could be engaging, right? I don't want to feel like he's dogpiling him to open with asking us a question. I think.
Oh no, that's okay. No, I was going to ask it later, but that's cool.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I just didn't want you to forget it. So, yeah.
Oh no, I had it all copied down in case it was missed because I thought he missed it for a second.
Where's Snake at? Snake's supposed to be here. Get in here, Snake.
I told him to come over here, so.
Go ahead with your proposal on what you have for us.
Yeah, so I think there's a study or research has been done. It shows 1 billion genes and not one beneficial mutation. Are you guys familiar with that research?
I'm not familiar with the paper. Do you want to sort of shoot it over?
No, I'm interested though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was sort of like they all got together, a bunch of biologists, and I don't know what you would call that, like if it's really a peer review source.
Like a research project?
Research project.
Okay. What was the name of it?
I'm trying to locate it right now.
Now, when they did this, was the ecology that they used as their base, was it stable the whole time throughout each generation? Because I would think that we would experience if the ecology. So that's the thing that didn't come up in the conversation is mutation and speciation kind of ebb and flow to the tune of extinctions and pushing ecologies into like hyper evolutionary mode because the after a big extinction event, all the specialized niches die off and all the generalists thrive, and their ancestors or their descendants specialize, and it's this big ebb and flow every time there's this big extinction event. But once things get stabilized in the environment, you can, if the environment stays stable, you're going to see very little change over periods of time. But that didn't seem to come up too much in this conversation. I was kind of surprised because the ecological effects of that, because it's when the environment changes, especially when the environment changes drastically, that we see these things develop.
Yeah, so here is the Exome Aggregation Consortium, EXAC. It was the largest survey of human genes to date. So an exome is the portion of the genome that codes for the proteins. The exomes from 60,760 individuals from a variety of ethnic groups.
What paper is this?
Nature. Yeah.
Well,
it was
Nature is the journal.
That's a journal, not a paper.
I mean, I'm not sure. Like, what do you mean so what would constitute?
Read that name off again. Read the name of the paper again. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So, analysis of protein coding genetic variation in 60,706 humans.
Okay, and so you're saying that they are looking at different alleles for different 600,000 people or something?
Yes, and basically they found out only one that's beneficial out of a billion.
So again, there needs to be catalyst to drive the change, though. If it's in a stable environment, then you don't expect to have mutations, beneficial or otherwise, that really take hold and make much difference in the population.
Yeah, I'd have to read the paper to see how specifically they're designating what does and does not count as beneficial. And then I'm also kind of just a little bit wary for how they're what they're counting as the denominator. I mean, are they just saying that every allele counts as one of these billion that you're saying is on the denominator there for that fraction? And then, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how do you determine if an allele is beneficial or not when you're just looking at, for humans? I mean, is your point with bringing this up that there are that beneficial mutations are just too rare, or what is your claim here that this is providing evidence for?
Yes. So I'm saying the majority. If I think I'm even saying the fundamental mutations that happen are deleterious. I mean, there just aren't beneficial mutations. I mean, that's the argument. I think there is support to show that. I mean, even if, let's just say relaxed selection, but I was going to actually respond to the relaxed selection response too, because we have also research out there we call imperfect mimicry. And they found out that relaxed selection really hasn't even been really studied in systems, or they haven't even been really evaluated. So it can only explain so far or so much. So we have to explain how are all these mutations deleterious. And I mean, we could invoke relaxed selection, but I still think, I mean, I can show you guys a paper here too that imperfect mimicry kind of overturns that.
I mean, okay. So first of all, we do know that beneficial mutations exist. We have them documented, not just for humans, but for numerous other species. I don't know if you want. I thought you wanted to talk about genetic entropy, but we can talk about beneficial mutations if that's what you want to discuss.
So this paper seems to be focusing on Mendelian disease, right? it seems to be focusing on the EXAC resource provides a large database for the estimation of allele frequency for protein coding genetic variants, providing a powerful filter for analysis of candidate pathogenic variants in severe Mendelian diseases.
That's what
So
these
are they
ratio
actually-
maps look like that they're talking
Right.
about. Yeah.
So are they looking for beneficial mutations as well, or have you found something that's focusing on Mendelian diseases and sort of said, well, you know, we can screen for the allele frequencies that you know come up with these diseases?
Yeah. Well, to me, if the majority of mutations are deleterious, I don't see how that is not related to genetic entropy.
Well, the majority
Because-
of mutations are not deleterious. The majority of mutations are effectively neutral.
Yeah, and I would absolutely I would say that's I would disagree with that.
Well, Donnie's own source, right, that he cited tonight and cites numerously on his PowerPoints, his own source for this says that that most mutations are effectively neutral. So
yes,
this is
yeah, but see, yeah, I think you're maybe mischaracterizing that. I think in a small grade scale, yes, they are neutral, but in the larger picture, the fundamental picture, yes, they're bigger scale deleterious mutations. So I think you're slightly
how
misrepresenting
do
him
you
there.
mean in the small scale versus the large scale here?
Well, population. So in a population sense, that in a local sense, I'll just say locally, yes, they're neutral mutations, but they add up after time, and it affects the whole environment, the whole system. After a while, it begins to add up, and it
I just
becomes
wanna-
deleterious.
Okay, so two things. One, we've got Snake joining the stream,
Hey, Snake.
who was on the debate tonight. So welcome, Snake. I want to hear your thoughts about how the debate went. But first, I just want to address just generally, right, that the reason why these slightly deleterious mutations do not add up over time is because they are culled by genetic drift. 99% of all mutations are erased over time due to genetic drift. So praise, if you are curious about this, I would encourage you to Google mutation drift balance, which explains exactly this. So Snake, welcome to the stream. What were your thoughts on the debate tonight?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the multiple selection processes that I mentioned. I didn't mention that specifically. I guess I could have done that. But yeah, I was going more for why, since we see the opposite of genetic entropy, we actually see genetic improvement, how he could basically deal with that. And I think the answer we got is, oh, genetic entropy only applies to complex organisms.
Well,
Yeah, that
that's
was a
directly
very
related to my
interesting take
question
that
in
he
chat.
had there, because, I mean, typically it's asexual, like single-celled organisms that are going to be the most prone to having, like, the damaging effects of high mutation loads, like in Muller's ratchet. So
Right.
I was very floored when he was saying that it was quite
That's like
the opposite.
potato famine logic, right?
Yeah.
What do you define as complex organisms? Because we've done sort of experiments with Drosophila as well, which is fruit flies, and they don't experience any kind of genetic entropy either. So do we mean complex over insects or something? I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, can we define what complex organisms are?
Well, I mean, to me, like my definition might be different than Donnie's. So, but I would think complex has to do with teleology, that has some type of ability of moral, intellectual abilities, and then I would just say basically along those lines. So yeah.
I don't understand. Why would moral and teleological ability have anything to do with genetic entropy? Like, why would suddenly the ability to make moral decisions would you be succumb to genetic entropy, and a hamster that doesn't wouldn't? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry, Praise. I have no
Right.
idea what that.
I mean, I don't know if like he has his. I mean, Donnie has his own idea of what is complex, but I would say intelligence. I think intelligence is what drives everything, and that is what's indicative in nature. So, I would say that is top to bottom. So it's intelligence down, and it degrades from the top to bottom instead of rather from bottom to top. And I want to say something about genetic drift as well. So genetic drift would be disadvantageous to evolution because of degenerative mutations get dispersed and eventually fixed within a population. Selection can't see them and they drift. So actually, it would actually support our position if you're going to bring up genetic drift with
Okay, Praise,
degenerative
you
mutations.
just acknowledge that 99% of all mutations are bound to be erased by genetic drift. They are not bound for fixation.
I would say I might agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so then obviously genetic drift is not fixing deleterious mutations, it's erasing them. Like, this is a basic principle of population genetics that 99% of all mutations, and you can look, and even like Robert Sanford, or Robert Carter rather, and other creationists acknowledge that 99% of all mutations are wiped out by genetic drift.
But eventually, but they can't be seen by selection though. Like, do you think
that's why they're subject to genetic drift? Like, if they're not subject to selection, they're subject to drift.
But how is that
They just don't
advantageous
spread.
though? I don't see how that's advantageous to evolution.
Well, because they don't spread, they just die off randomly because there's no mechanism for them to spread throughout the whole population of fixation.
And see,
yeah, I don't know if we see that,
which
They
kind
don't
of
become
like
fixed in the population, right? So there's no fixation, which means that they're just dead ends. Those are just the dead ends. Like when you look at a tree of life image that they're displaying, and they're all those ends. Those are the dead ends. There's still ends going, but there's dead ends too, and there's way more dead ends than there are ones that keep going.
Yeah,
well,
the extinction events that have occurred have been insane as well. And I wanted to ask Snake this. I thought that sort of the accumulation of mutations, when it got to a certain point, it would be deleterious enough that organisms or that group of organisms would not thrive and therefore be, outcompeted by other species. And that was the way they were removed as well. Basically, that when you had a build up, sort of, you can say, hey, the deleterious mutations that, aren't deleterious enough to really affect the organism, but eventually a build up of these mutations will be, right?
Yeah, and but I suspect SFT would reply, and he would reply the same thing as to drift, is that, well, eventually all of them are going to be replaced by some mutant version, which is like, even if most of them drift out, you're going to have mutants coming in, but it's like all of them are already mutants. It doesn't matter.
So I have had this conversation with SFT before. I forget which of our debates it was in, but I bring up the concept, Mark, of what you're describing, where you have a certain threshold, okay, from which the amount of mutation load that you'd be accumulating would pass over this threshold and begin to impair your fitness. And then suddenly you are under selection pressures because it is impairing your fitness. So you have right around, like hovering right beneath this mutation threshold, you have a certain amount of mutation load that's inherent in the population. But not every individual is going to be at the same level of mutation load. So some individuals are going to be selected against, and others are going to be invisible to selection. But there's going to be, it's called maintaining the mutation selection balance. So we talked about the mutation drift balance. There's also the mutation selection balance, because ultimately all mutations are either under drift or under selection pressures. So like you're going to have like two different kinds of equilibria, one with mutation and selection and one with mutation and drift. So the combination of these two things fully accounts for why there is no genetic entropy.
And
Well, I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Praise. Sorry.
I was going to say, well, I mean, you can have shifted traits within allele frequencies, but however, nothing is generated new. You don't get new information. So, I mean, even if you disagree genetic entropy, where's the new information coming from?
Mutations,
you know, replication, transposition, basically the building blocks being moved around. It creates new information.
Well, I mean, didn't you guys disagree that most of them are neutral and genetic drift gets a hold of the neutral ones? I thought you guys said that.
It's also context dependent.
Yeah. Right.
So
the environment
like
determines what's beneficial and what's detrimental.
So like with the algae, it's going to be beneficial to some species of algae, it's going to be beneficial to stay single-celled. In some contexts, it's going to be more beneficial to become multicellular in other contexts. And what that's doing is the new information comes from reorganization of existing information. So it's not like it builds this whole new set of code. With the algae example, when it becomes multicellular, essentially what happens is it takes a gene it already has and just turns it off at a different stage. And so they clump together, and this creates a new trait from an existing gene that's already there. It's just being reapplied how it's being used.
Well, let me give you guys an example. So we're like, let's say there's actually a paper in I think it's cellbiology.com. It's like a paper, or maybe it's like a paper system, I'm not sure, but it did say that our IQ has been degenerating, and it said genetic entropy. So like, let's just say drift, or however you guys want to try to rescue all this. So why would the IQ not be beneficial for something to progress? Why are we losing IQ point, or why is IQ going downwards?
Yeah, so there might be other factors behind that.
Yeah.
For instance, the introduction of lead into the system from leaded petrol and things like that. It could be that low IQ people, we have an idiocracy situation where low IQ people are outbreeding the high IQ people. That could be a factor as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would ask Praise. I mean, Praise, do you think that the highest IQ people are having the most babies? Obviously not. So that should answer your question.
Well, I don't think IQ is a good measure of anything. So
yeah,
individual
it's very
trait
poorly
fitness
defined, very poorly.
Yeah,
we're getting stupider
fitness.
though. Like, you don't think that's important? Like, if people are getting stupider and dumber, then I mean that's
I don't think that I don't think that saying because the people are scoring lower on these tests that were designed for people in the 1940s with I mean, because we're still using the same questionnaires, the same types of inquiries to determine IQ that we used 70 years ago, even though culture and society and human mind has progressed since then.
Yeah,
and all that standards and IQ is archaic.
Like,
all that matters is
think about who's having the most children, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're going to get more of in the population, is whatever segment of the population is having the most children. If we had some kind of society that was structured to where you had to have an IQ over 120 in order to get licensed to have children, what do you think we would have after a few generations? We would have higher IQs, because that would be what we were artificially selecting for. Obviously, our current human societies are not selecting for how you score on an IQ test. I mean, that should be obvious to everyone.
Yeah, individual trait doesn't matter. The fitness of an individual trait doesn't matter. It's whether you can make more babies. So if you can reproduce, it doesn't matter how dumb you are, because you'll still make children. and they'll make children too.
Yeah, animals a lot dumber than humans still manage to reproduce. So I don't think you have to have human intelligence.
The problem also is, like Bree was saying, that these IQ tests are set up for when they used to do them in the 1950s, when they originated, and they haven't changed much since then. Also, the problem is that IQ is very poorly understood, and what is genetic about IQ, at least as far as these tests are concerned, like, for instance, your sort of logical awareness and all of this kind of thing, it's kind of very poorly understood whether it does come directly from genetics or whether it comes from education. And a lot of the comprehension abilities may be reflective of education as well as a genetic component. So what we don't know, these tests don't basically get at just a person's IQ. Education is a component for them as well. And if education becomes worse, which we can kind of see education is becoming worse, at least in certain countries, the IQ will drop because these tests reflect part of that.
Well, I'm looking at the paper right now. They're saying mutations is the reason why the intellect of humans has been going down. So, I mean, I can just read. So one of the key misconceptions in the Crabtree articles is that mutations happen to us as a species. His back to the life envelope calculations lead to the following conclusions. Every 20 to 50 generations, we should sustain a mutation in one copy of our many ID intellectual deficiency genes. In the past 300 years and 120 generations, each of us should have accumulated at the very least 2.5 to 6 mutations in ID genes. So yeah.
Praise. It's reading what you're reading through is like, I get it and I follow what you're saying and which arguments you're trying to present here. Did you ever take like an agricultural class or anything like that? Understand anything about like artificial selection and how you can pick things that aren't necessarily beneficial, or you can let things thrive in a population that aren't beneficial? Like a pug comes to mind, a dog, the dog with the really short face. They don't do well. They have terrible health. They're not viable in the wild, in the natural environment, right? So we do that to people because we now have the ability to take care of our people that would maybe potentially not have survived in a natural setting. But we have medical science and we have special, education programs and artificial limbs and things like that to help people who could pass on these genes that cause these effects that otherwise wouldn't have let these people be able to continue in our society. And they get to reproduce and they get to have children of their own. And yes, they get to pass on those genes as well. And the same thing, this doesn't just apply to physical things that they're going to pass on genetically. It also is going to apply, like what Grayson was saying, to mental deficiencies as well that may take hold in the population. Those get passed on because we have things set up. So it's not just that we are getting dumber, it's that we're selecting to make sure that everybody gets a chance to survive. That's just how we are as a social species.
So, yeah, and I wanted to mention that actually, Bree. That's a really good point. Like, medicine has kind of interrupted the selection process. It's kind of put this, like, somebody that has a disease which ordinarily they wouldn't survive, we can cure the disease, but that genetic information that has the disease is being passed onwards. So you can't look at humans and go, well, natural selection should be eliminating deleterious mutations, because what we're doing is using medicine and science to compensate for deleterious mutations. So humans in general are not a very good species to point at for any kind of standard of mutation, because we have interrupted that process significantly too.
So there's just a couple of things I want to touch on here. To my knowledge, in IQ, I think is actually a fairly inheritable trait. The last I had read was that about 70% was inheritable, but that was a rough estimate that the last time that I'd come across some of this literature.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to bring up about, I think that the relaxed selection is a great point. And I have brought this up to Standing for Truth many a time, and it was brought up by Snake and others in the debate tonight and in the side chat. And the response that I have heard from that is that, relaxed selection is missing the point because we're only talking about mutations that are invisible to selection anyway. So he says, we're only talking about slightly deleterious mutations, which wouldn't be selected for regardless. But then I just want to point out the hypocrisy in that he uses as his example things like autism or like the rise in like neurodegenerative diseases or like heart problems or arthritis. And he brings up all things that are like in a natural wild state would be under selection. So his examples for all of the negatives that come along with this are never the slightly deleterious mutations that he wants to claim whenever you bring up relaxed selection. So there's a certain disconnect there. And then just the last thing I want to point out, like praise, you were just talking about this. Donnie exclusively talks about this. All I ever seem to hear is that there are X number of mutations each generation. And you talk about the accumulation of new mutations. But I never hear any discussion about the loss of previous mutations, right? Because at every generation, you're not only accumulating new mutations, you're also losing old mutations, right? So I never hear about the other side of that coin, right? Creationists only seem to focus on the accumulation of new mutations, but never about the mutations that are lost due to drift every single generation.
All those recessive mutations.
We're accumulating 100 new mutations. Okay, well, what about the 100 mutations that we're losing every generation to drift that balance and compensate for that? I never hear a single word about that.
Well, mutations don't need to drift to fixation or for fixation to be damaging. They just need to float around. So I think that's sort of maybe misnomer or canard with that. But and one thing in this paper, what do you guys make of de novo mutations? Like the paper I'm referencing is Trends in Genetics, Genetic Entropy, and the Human Intellect. And it also says it involves individuals. So like, if it's on individual level and they're de novo mutations, so how does like drift account for that? How can you explain that?
How could drift explain de novo mutations?
Yes, but not only that, but also these mutations arise in individuals, not populations. I'm actually reading right from the paper right here.
Yeah, an individual mutation arises in an individual, but then it takes hold in the population. As long as it's not deleterious, it can take hold in the population. And if it's advantageous, it'll take hold in the population a lot faster.
So, so explain to me what you guys think of de novo mutations. What do you guys explain that to be?
Look, there are new mutations every generation, right? Those are de novo mutations. Those are just new mutations. Yeah, I fail to see what point you're even trying to get at.
De novo means
sort
new.
Of old. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what an old mutation would be. I sort of all mutations are kind of new, aren't they? I mean, I'm not sure what you're getting at, Praise.
So I guess is there a line where something goes from becoming a new mutation and and just part of the genome? And I mean, at what point? Because it's just graded, right? It pops up somewhere and just takes hold of the population and is graded out through population from there.
Well, if you inherited your parents' mutation, I think that would probably count as like the old mutation. Yeah, but praise the de novo mutation.
It's not really a mutation anymore, right? I mean,
it would
be a mutation relative to your grandparents.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Okay. All right. So
the de novo mutations are the ones you accumulate yourself that are new to you in your generation. And a de novo gene is maybe something different. Maybe that's what you meant.
Yeah, Praise, can you maybe clarify like what exactly you were asking about de novo mutations?
Right. So I guess, like, because I heard you guys say they can be inherited. Well, I mean, I'm seeing right here that the effects are often too severe for them to be inherited. So I thought that was sort of a like a contradiction there. I didn't know if you guys. I mean, I think you're maybe
Did
explain that. I'm not sure.
Did you want to give us the name of the paper?
Yeah, it's Trends in Genetic Entropy in the Human Intellect by Kevin J. Mitchell, published December 14, 2012, the DOI. If you want the DOI number, I can give you the DOI number.
Genetic Entropy in the American Public?
No, Genetic Entropy in the Human Intellect.
Oh, I don't. Who's the author?
Kevin J. Mitchell.
Okay, I'll find it.
SFTs, I think there we go.
Yeah, he's in the chat. I just want to say that he brought up the exact quote that I brought up earlier, that where he says that like this exact paper that he likes to quote mine here to say that the vast majority of mutations are deleterious. If he finishes reading that quote, then it literally says that these are effectively neutral, right? That's the consensus of the genetics community, is that the majority of mutations is effectively neutral. Everyone can go look at this article right here, read it for yourself, a non-quote mined version where you can read the full context, and you can clearly see that the authors of this paper are agreeing with the neutral model, that the vast majority of mutations are effectively neutral. So when they're saying here,
only like 3 or 4 of them are truly deleterious, and the rest are effectively
what
neutral.
he's neglected on
Can
this
I read out
right
the
here,
paragraph
where
of
he's
this?
cut off. I'll just go ahead and I'll
Sure.
see if I can read it here, because it's pretty telling what he's actually left off here, because they say, and they qualify their statement, that here we go. It seems unlikely that any mutation is truly neutral in the sense that it has no effect on fitness. All mutations must have some effect, even if that effect is vanishingly small. So they're counting as not truly neutral, right? Any little tiny effect. So if you have something switching from an A to a G, and even if that doesn't affect the actual protein sequence at all, say it's like a flexible codon and the amino acid is the exact same, so absolutely no effect on fitness, but maybe it costs a small fraction of a joule to make a G compared to an A. So they would say, oh, then that's slightly like a loss of fitness, even though that's completely splitting hairs, and that's like not at all like anything that would be relevant in regards to the context of genetic entropy or whether or not a mutation is deleterious. Like, he's counting even vanishingly small fitness effects as being not truly neutral. That's why in the very next sentence of that paper, they go on to say that the majority are effectively neutral, right? That word effectively is not just used as fluff. Like, effectively neutral is different than truly neutral. So it's a total quote mine of just pulling that quote out of context without any differentiation between true neutral and effectively neutral. That is very much misconstruing the author's intent in that paper.
Can you read out the last paragraph of that paper? I just read the last paragraph. Isn't that long? It's like only a couple of few sentences.
The very last, like in the conclusion?
Yeah.
Okay. Additionally, and possibly more crucially, we must be able to differentiate sites that are subject to selection from those that are not. This might prove to be especially difficult for sites that are subject to weak selection.
Oh, okay. That I must be looking at a different thing than you are. Okay.
Let me post.
Yeah. If you could post a link, that'd be great. Because I'm obviously
in the private chat.
Maybe it's the last thing of the abstract that I'm looking at. Is this just the abstract that I'm looking at? What the hell am I looking at?
Let me read the last sentence of the abstract. Advantageous mutations are rare, and those that are strongly selected are exponentially distributed. And the distribution of fitness effects of deleterious mutations is complex and multimodal. So that's their conclusion for this paper that Donnie loves to cite. It's in all of his slideshows, showing that he wants to say that this paper shows that almost all mutations are deleterious, even though that is completely taking the authors out of context. And
but that paper you just read out that says that positive mutations are strongly selected for, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that was what Snake was bringing up in the discussion, and that Kimura talks about in a number of his papers, where like even when you have a beneficial mutation, like the fitness effects vastly outweigh the like accumulation of any slightly deleterious mutations.
Yeah, so they're counting anything that's even slightly deleterious as deleterious.
Yeah, just in the context of true neutral versus like, you know, but they're basically contrasting true neutral versus a like slightly deleterious. Like when most geneticists are referring to this, the contrast is between slightly deleterious and effectively neutral, right? No geneticist is going to be talking about true neutral mutations. Every geneticist publishing is going to be talking about effectively neutral, right? The vast majority of mutations are effectively neutral. So yeah, both Sanford, like Sanford takes Kimura out of context. SFT takes these authors out of context. Usually in creationist arguments for genetic entropy, it's a whole lot of quote mining.
If I may propose, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, that's all right, Praise. You go, mate.
I was just saying, if I may propose another evidence of genetic entropy, you might laugh at this, but I'm going to give proof of this, that atheism itself is proof of genetic entropy. What would you guys say to that?
Oh, that's cool. Tell me about it. I want to know.
So I'm going to do is I'm going to.
What'd you say? I
missed it. This is going to be good.
What'd you say is proof of genetic entropy?
Atheism.
If you're reading this stuff, why can't you share it, Praise? I just pulled up.
I'm sharing it right now. I put it up there.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Atheism is proof of genetic entropy.
Oh yeah.
The mutant says in his heart, there is no God. The rejection of collective religiosity centered around the worship of moral gods is associated with high mutational load. Oh my gosh, I have a book to recommend for you, Praise.
Is that a joke, or is that a joke, or is that?
No, it's from Springer. Springer actually published this.
That is a very interesting title. I can't say I've come across this paper before.
I've seen it.
If I was just going to guess, I would think that you're going to have increased amount of relaxed selection in highly technological societies, which is going to correspond with a higher amount of atheists in highly technologically advanced societies.
Yep. It's correlation, not causation.
So there's an argument to be made that religiosity is genetically driven in humans, just based on our the way that our awareness works for how the world works around us, gives us this notion of a higher authority that we're all yielding to. Darwin's Cathedral is the name of the book I was talking about. You should look into that, Praise. Read what it says about how belief in something supernatural and a higher power is it's genetically innate in us. So I mean that, in my opinion is I guess an atheist, or maybe an atheist. I don't know. Am I an atheist, Mark?
Sorry?
Am I an atheist?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I can understand it, yeah. I mean,
You're a
That's my
mutant
opinion.
too.
We're all mutants.
Yeah,
We're all mutants.
But are you
mutants.
guys seriously saying that city folk are mostly atheists? Come on, guys, that's just so biased and it's like stereotyping right
Well,
there.
No,
I mean, when you look at the actual data given by the, I mean, I can only talk. I've only looked into the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They do a census every few years. That 40% of people are no religion in Australia.
it's just a higher correlation.
Right, and it's getting to like, because most people in the country have more religiosity, that number is higher in the city centres, so it's getting up to about 50% or so. But I mean, that's in Australia. But I believe that is a correlation. People in cities generally have a lower religiosity than people in rural areas. I don't know why that would be difficult to believe.
Well, I mean, because like, what is it? Atheists make up 3 or 4% of the world's population. So,
It's higher
I
than
mean,
that.
wouldn't that cover a
It's way
lot
higher
of?
than that.
Well, I mean, here in the U.S., maybe I was wrong. Okay, in the U.S., it's like 3 to 4%. They'll even make it maybe 5% if you want to be generous.
No.
That was, I mean, look it up on Wikipedia, Mark. It shows you there that the USA poll was like 4% of atheists that polled atheists.
Does that poll divide atheists from like the nons?
Yeah, non-religious is higher.
Yeah, I mean, with those can go either way. This because people are not associated with some type of denomination does not mean that they're not spiritual or believe in
Lack
God
of
biblically
belief
or
in
something.
God. Self-described atheist among regions in the US ranges from northeastern United States at 12% to southern United States at 7%. So 5 is definitely not the number that you're looking for.
He wasn't
there.
that
That's in the
far off,
U.S.,
though.
which is the
He
most
shared a bunch.
Well, it's
religious of
about
any.
10% or so, I'd say. I'm struggling to find a.
Yeah, and that's for the U.S., which is the most religious of any Western nation.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, we'll even give you 12%. I mean, okay, that's fine,
No,
but still, like
Mexico's pretty religious.
but that's
Well, but what
still
point-
like pretty small. It's a small portion size compared to the religious people around the world. I'm just saying, I don't think
Well,
that
what-
was a good response, to be honest.
What I don't
12%.
understand the point.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
basically
understand
saying that this is causation, and we're saying this is correlation, and there are likely to be other confounding variables.
Yes, but your response is, well, because industrialized places, there's probably more atheists. Well, I'm saying no, because the majority of population size we have are religious, whether they be Muslim, Christian, or what have you. So, I mean, it just doesn't work out with the numbers.
Well, it doesn't have to be a majority of atheists. It just has to be higher relative to other populations, like
Well, not talking about
pre-industrial.
Yeah,
I'm higher than pre-industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only census I can find is 2008. That's a little late, but even then it was sort of 15% in the US. So I don't.
Okay, well, I just found an article where they find a direct relationship between degree of urbanization and the prevalence of atheism. So,
So what's the name of that? Yeah, I'd like to see that source.
It's the politics of atheism in the West from 2013. It's a political science. I just found it on Google Scholar. Here, let me post
Daniel Ryan Blazo.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, I've spent time in rural areas and I've spent time in urban areas, and it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, while anecdotal, it does sort of reflect what I've found as well. I mean, I don't know many people that are going to argue that the urban areas are more religious than the rural areas of, well, just about any country, really. I mean,
but what is the point? That they're more mutated, or
maybe
they're just better educated.
Well, I guess
Perhaps.
like there's more to us than what meets the eye. I guess that's what I'm trying, and maybe that's what I'm getting at.
I
And I
don't
think
get your
even
point,
within
though.
our
We're Decepticons.
well, even in our
I
makeup,
think.
God has made it so like we'll even destroy ourselves if we don't align with God. If you're not aligning with God, your own makeup will degrade. And I'm just saying, like
How
that's
so?
proof of intelligent design. It's not proof of some
And
type
how
of
is that
random
happening?
process.
Wait, you've said if we don't align with God, our makeup will be destroyed. Now, I'm assuming you're not talking about L'Oreal or something. So, what do you mean by makeup, and what is the process for it being destroyed?
Yeah, so everything is generated from your mind and your spirit, and when that is contrary to God or opposes God, your genes will go downward. It'll degrade, and
But
well, you'll say, well, does that mean that spiritual or the mind is more fundamental than the biology? I will say, of course, yeah.
Let me get
phrase
paper
this.
because this is getting a bit weird. Praise, do you have any evidence that people that follow God are having less gene degeneration than people not following God? Do you have any evidence for that at all?
I'd say it's something I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find more evidence. I have not looked into that, but that's a good point. I'm gonna look into that, Mark. Thank you.
Well, we
Because
should
yeah,
be
you
able to see
did
that.
you think that that paper was saying that the atheists have more mutations?
Yeah, mutational load. Yes.
Well, no, it's a higher mutational load over the whole population, as well as a higher uh,
Prevalence of
atheism over the whole
atheism. Yeah,
population.
yeah.
It's not that atheists have more mutations.
They're just saying mutational load is increasing, the prevalence of atheists are increasing. Those
Yeah.
two things are both increasing. That's a correlation, and then pointing that out. It's in no way saying, hey, we looked at these atheists and studied their genes, and they have a higher mutational load than the Christians or whoever else we studied. That's not what it's saying.
Well, okay, so I don't. Okay, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm speaking past. I mean, past each other here. So why is it that high mutational loads are associated with atheism? So are you saying that they're not correlated or something? Is that what you guys are arguing?
It's not
No, they're
associated in
correlated.
individuals. It's associated on a society level, the entire
Right.
population.
Okay.
So, like the mutation loads of both theists and atheists in the population, right? The mutation load is including everybody.
Okay. So, I mean, why did the title of the paper, like, what are they trying, like, why would they even mention that atheists are associated with mutational load? So, what is it they're trying to, convey to the people who read this paper?
I mean, Praise, do you think that I could find do you think that we could do an analysis where like the use of an iPhone was correlated with higher mutational loads? Like, I mean, it seems like we'd be able to do that analysis because ultimately, like higher mutational loads are found in more highly technologically advanced societies, right? Like hunter gatherers are not under as much of a restricted selection as we are in in the West or in other technological societies with medical technology.
Hmm.
Like our mutation load is going to be higher than societies that do not have access to the kind of medical care that we do.
So, are you saying because they're not like people back like a long time ago, primitives or people that were cavemen, like they were fighting like tigers and lions and bears, so therefore that they didn't they were not subject to the same mutations we are today?
They had more mutations taken out by the tigers.
Because they're not fighting these animals or something? I mean, that to me
It's
makes no sense
because
at
their
all.
selection pressures were higher than they are today. Like if you're born with a lame foot, you're not going to be able to outrun a tiger very well.
But in today's society, it's not a problem. those mutations stay in the population. And also the population is advancing technologically, it's changing politically and philosophically.
Yeah, and part of the paper seems to be suggesting that it's other things that's causing this. Like it's not some sort of supernatural thing. Like atheists generally support, things like immigration, which is going to bring in much more diverse gene loads into the gene pool of that society. So there may be other reasons why this is happening than, sort of saying, hey, I'm God saying I'm going to increase the mutational load of atheists in particular, kind of thing. Like that isn't what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and the title of the paper is pretty cheeky. Like sometimes you'll get like joke titles on legitimate
that is a
papers.
title if ever I've seen one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like an expert in genetics, so I'm gonna have to, defer to you guys and look into it. And I think SFT is like leaps and bounds above my understanding, so I don't know how he would respond, but I'd like to see what he would have to say about it.
Yeah,
Well,
ultimately,
it
I'll
also
just say that genetic entropy is not real, because of drift and selection, right? Those two things cull deleterious mutations and slightly deleterious mutations out of the population. It's those two processes that are the reason why genetic entropy is not real. And Donnie only seems to focus on selection, and he just seems to write off drift but give no explanation as to why.
Don't get me wrong,
And
I like Donnie. I do like Donnie, but he cherry picks and
Yeah.
misrepresents paper. I'm really sorry, but that's, it's what he does. His ERV papers, he gave them to Mr. Hovind, and he didn't read all of them because they absolutely 100% disagree with him. You can't claim a paper supports you when its conclusion says exactly the opposite. I just wanted to add that
so many times.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna I gotta go, so I will catch you guys later. But it was a real good talk. Praise, thanks for coming in. I know it's always hard to step into a room that disagrees, so I don't want to
Yeah, likewise, Mark. Yeah, very amicable. Thank you so much.
No
See you,
problem.
Mark.
Do have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
You have a good one, Mark. You enjoy your day.
Okay,
But,
I might start winding down the after show as well. I think that we've pretty much addressed a lot of the topics on genetic entropy. But Praise, don't go yet. I want to ask you a question before we're done. But because Snake was actually the one in the debate, and he was gracious enough to join the after show, I wanted to just pick his brain, see if he had any closing thoughts on genetic entropy, how tonight went, etc.
Well, I did want to point out real quick that in this atheism mutant paper, it also correlates poor health, autism, left-handedness with this too. So yeah. So it's just changing traits of the population in general. But yeah, I think overall the debate went well. Kind of pointed out the inherent contradiction there, where eventually the slightly deleterious mutations are going to become selectable, and you could say, let's say all your genes are replaced by slightly deleterious versions that you've inherited somehow. You're still going to be in mostly good health. And then if any of those tip towards being really bad, or if they interact wrongly with each other, then it becomes selectable. So and most of these slightly deleterious are actually not noticeable at all, just effectively neutral. And plus, I don't think Donnie had a good response to the compensatory mutations either. And all he said was just, I don't think it can outweigh the net loss. And that's just kind of an opinion, even though we actually see in real time real organisms, it actually that there is net gain.
All right. Well, thank you, Snake. I agree. I thought you did a great job in tonight's debate. That was like 3 hours, so well done there. Engaging with Donnie. I think that Donnie actually wanted to have me on for the next one of these podcast type formats. I think originally he wanted to have me on discussing Neanderthals, and then I think we might do it on chromosome 2 fusion. So I haven't really gotten a clear direction on what the topic's going to be yet, but look out for that one coming up. And then Praise, you did mention that you had wanted to do a debate with me on quantum physics. So I just wanted to take this opportunity. I don't know. I don't want you to give away your whole argument, obviously, but I was going to just ask, like, kind of maybe a little bit more specific about what exactly about quantum physics that you want to be talking about, kind of like maybe a tease for the audience of what they might be able to expect out of that debate.
Yeah, so the nature of quantum mechanics, but I think you mentioned that like you might comport to a simulation type of theory, or was it the holographic theory? I think that you were, I'm not sure completely, but something along those lines you brought up, right?
Yeah, so for years I was very resistant to the idea of like a simulation theory or like we're living in a hologram or all of this, but it was actually just probably like 6 months ago or something that I came across like topics in physics, like anti-de Sitter spaces and like some concepts of quantum entanglement and the entanglement of information and how it can be used to simulate our universe that like especially as that relates to black holes, that I kind of just relented and was like, yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense to me and I like that as a theory. So as much as I never thought that I would be like a simulation theory kind of guy, like, oh, we're all in a simulation, man, I have kind of come to appreciate it a lot, and it's actually one of my, favorite little pet theories at the moment. So I'm not claiming that there's, evidence, like strong evidence to support this. We obviously don't know about the nature of black holes with current evidence, but I think that there's a lot going for it, and I personally like the idea a lot.
Yeah, and me too. I think the new trend is that quantum information, every space time and like physicality or material, it's emerged from what we call quantum information. So the debate would come down to the nature of quantum information itself. Is it indicative of something physical or something non-physical, like a mind and something like that? So that's where I was going with it.
Oh, is that like the quantum information in the simulation has to come from a mind?
Yes, yeah, that's where I would go with it. And I think there's a lot. I mean, I'm gonna come with a lot of stuff that I think would support my argument there.
All right. And then just to wrap it up and get spicy, I think maybe all of this or somebody in the comment in the live chat was saying that the room was too dry and we needed an elephant to come into the room and really get things going and exciting. So without further ado, I've been holding him off because I didn't want to derail the conversation too much. But here at the end, I wanted to just let Jungle Jargon go ahead and join the stream. So, Jungle, what's
I
on your
love
mind?
Jungle. Love you, buddy. What's up?
Hey, Jungle Jargon, how you doing?
Who are you?
That'd be Hive Science.
Oh,
We've talked before.
yeah. I want to say hi to everybody. And Mark Reid left, but I want to say hi to him too and stuff. But yeah, I was wondering about the Neanderthal genome because the genome tends to simplify quite a bit, and we have a lot less than what the Neanderthals had as humans that are like ancient humans. So what would you say to that?
Are you saying that Neanderthals were like genetically superior to modern humans or something? Is that your point?
Well, it's clear they have a lot. They had a larger genome, and of course they have a larger brain and stronger frame too, and teeth and everything. A whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So what is your conception for why humans were able to outcompete Neanderthals?
No, I'm not talking about competition. I'm talking about what the human genome used to be, the human structure and frame and everything and intelligence, what it used to be. And since we're talking about entropy or degradation, then to me it seems clear that we're degrading. And I mean, there's things like the sperm count, a whole bunch of stuff is degrading.
Well,
the
you don't
amoeba
think
has
that
a
any of
larger
those things
genome.
could have confounding variables, like, for example, like microplastics, maybe for sperm count? Who knows? But there are other things other than just genetic degeneration that would account for these observations. And
Right, right. I
I don't
agree,
think
but I
many
mean,
people would agree that
there.
Neanderthal
Well,
are.
that's the thing. You're always appealing to other factors. Yeah, maybe it's soap, maybe it's plastic, maybe it's something else, but the whole effect, the end result is degradation and entropy. Seems to me,
You
because
need to be able to show that only one variable is the only variable is genetic entropy, if you're going to claim it is.
well, I mean, if we have a smaller genome, I mean, considerably smaller, and the genome is known to like simplify. And
Well, the amoeba has a larger genome than us too. Certain species of
no, but
amoeba.
that's irrelevant. They have a different operating system with their genetics, anyways.
Yeah, but so the point is just that size is not really a relevant
No, that's
factor.
no, but
It's not the
that's
size of your genome; it's how you use it.
but the
Yeah.
size of the size of the genome is what makes us, and we have a lot less. I mean, we're losing function. A lot of our
Wait.
genome
Why is the
doesn't work.
size of the genome important here? I mean, what Snake brought up is a good point. Like onions have like
No, but see,
4 times the size of our genome.
but you're always appealing to one excuse or another, though.
Well, you're the one that's trying to make the point that the size of the genome is somehow relevant. And we're bringing up very good examples to explain why the size of the genome is not a contributing factor to either anything that you would consider as complexity, sophistication, or
Well,
any kind of intelligence. So why
yeah, but
is the size of the genome important?
because I already showed you how it relates to a larger brain, stronger frame and muscles and everything, and more intelligence, and that's what everything that we're losing, and we have known genetic malfunctions. We have known genetic things in the human population that no longer work.
But if there's other possible causes, then you can't say which cause it is.
I would also
But
like to point out that, like, there is some correlation
but
between like brain
but
size and intelligence, but it's not
but
that strict. I mean, there are
but
lots of
does it
animals.
matter
Wait,
does
1 second, Jungle. There are lots of animals that have larger brains than humans, but I
right
don't think that you would say
that's
that they're more
irrelevant.
intelligent.
But does the cause make a difference? The point is whether or not it's degrading. Our genome is degrading, and it's clear to me that it's degrading.
It could be degrading because of lack of selection and not genetic
Yeah,
entropy.
that's what I'm trying to say. The cause is irrelevant.
Well, no, the cause is very important because, like, there could be multiple causes for genetic degradation that are not genetic entropy.
Right, but it's supposed to be building us better, right? I mean, if we
Not if there's
arrived at
relaxed selection.
being humans, is because we're always somehow getting better information, and but the opposite seems to be true.
I think that this is just a fundamental misunderstanding of how evolution works, right? Where the whole
No.
point of evolution is not that we're necessarily getting better; it's that we're getting better fitted to the selection process of the environment.
Evolution doesn't exist. It's not even evolution. Is not even
Okay,
a
okay.
thing. It's not
if
even
all
a
you
thing.
care
It's
about,
like,
I
if all
know
you
that you
care
don't
about
agree with
is
that,
just if
but it's
all
just
you
for the
care about
sake.
is the population getting less fit or getting more mutations, that's different. But if you want to blame it, see the thing that creationists love genetic entropy with so much is because they think it falsifies evolution.
because we're losing all of our function.
And that could happen just because none of us are dying anymore, or there's significantly less are dying because of genetic diseases.
But it's been happening for thousands of years.
Okay, but that if it's not genetic entropy, that doesn't preclude evolution. That's why it matters.
I mean, we had a lot of things that. I mean, we had a lot of natural selection back in the day, you know. And
Yeah, populations can go extinct, and that doesn't mean that evolution is false.
well, that doesn't mean that there's no genetic entropy either. I mean, but
Yeah, well,
evolution is false because there's no mechanism for evolution. That's why it's false.
Well, mutation and natural selection would be the main mechanism.
So that adds to your genome. That makes your genome larger when it's getting smaller.
It doesn't have to get larger; it just has to get different.
But that's not evolution. That you're not advancing. You're not getting.
Well, that is
bigger and
like
bigger.
descent with modification is
Well,
evolution.
then it's useless. Then evolution is useless. Your evolution is useless. It's not making us better. It's making us deteriorate. You know, it's not getting
No,
any
it's
better.
it only selects based on the environment. So if we're in an environment where there's not a very strong selection, then obviously like there's not as much of a pressure that would be forcing us to better fit a more rigorous environment, like if we were all out in the wilderness with nothing but our own wits and physicality.
Ecological stability allows for it.
That's part of the point. You can only select from what's there, and if we're losing everything that's there, all of our function, then you're not going to have much selection left.
Like, what are we losing according to you?
All kinds of function, you know, like
Can you give an
smell,
example of a function we've
and
lost?
taste, and a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, whole bunch of stuff is being lost.
Where is this evident at? I mean, where is there research on this that we can see?
I mean, sight, smell, vision. You know, well, vision and sight, I guess, it's the same thing. But
well, I mean, yeah, but where's it
a whole
being
bunch of stuff.
documented at? These things are being lost. Where do we see that documented at?
Well, like I said, the only real example that I have is ancient humans, which would be Neanderthals, and they have like, you know, huge brain, huge eyes, and strong frame.
So, Jungle, when we say that these things are due to relaxed selection, at least partially, right? Do you disagree that relaxed selection would explain everything that you're bringing up?
Well, no, because I mean, relaxed selection is going to give you less.
Less what?
Less function.
Yeah. If you have relaxed selection, yeah, of course, because then the mutations are not being culled out of the population and they're like going to be more prevalent. Of course.
Well, I
relaxed
mean,
selection accounts for it. All of
that's why when organisms
yeah,
stabilize, they start to diversify into different different color patterns and things like that within the group. In populations and
I mean, I did show that relaxed selection hasn't been really investigated, but what about like what I brought up is imperfect mimicry. So imperfect mimicry overturns this relaxed selection.
Okay, guys, we're going to be turning up the spiciness level just a little bit here. Bubblegum Gun has joined the stream,
and believe it or not,
beast.
There is still natural selection, and believe it or not, there's people that are still naturally selecting each other.
Yeah, but the more domesticated we are, the less likely we are to succumb to natural selection.
Yeah, relaxed selection obviously does not mean no selection, or else we would just say no selection. Relaxed means like less intense selection than would be natural.
And it allows for artificial selection too, for us
And
to
sexual selection, all
Yeah.
kinds of different selection. Like
Well, actually, the
relaxed
best,
selection does not mean no selection.
but the best selection is what we don't have is numbers of birth. That's the problem that we're losing. A lot of our genetic, entropy is from not having enough children too.
So we are having plenty of children. We just reached 8 billion people.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm actually glad it's kind of slowed down a little bit. It was
well, yeah, maybe the people that are natural selecting are having children. Yeah,
No, the thing
I don't
that's
even
missing
know
is like
what that
a bunch of
means,
these
Jungle.
people are like mentally
the
retarded.
people that are naturally selecting. Yeah.
Yeah, are you people aren't naturally selecting. Like,
Oh,
like
so
the environment selects. Like that natural selection is selection by environmental pressures, not by people.
well. I
So-
mean, the selection is made by
Having
which
kids.
organisms choose to mate with which organisms.
Well,
though.
that's
So there is
sexual
some-
selection. Like that's a different kind. I mean,
but
all
somebody
I could
didn't
think
say.
of was Jungle was be talking about people killing each other, and that being like the natural selection he's referring to.
Okay, yeah, no, that's not natural selection. That'd be artificial
No,
selection to cull a population like that
No.
artificially.
No, I don't. I'm not referring to calling people. I'm referring to people selecting each other
So that's like as
and
mates.
having kids.
Okay, so
and
that's
having kids.
sexual selection then, Jungle. That's what you're talking about is sexual selection.
Well, I mean, that's the only way you can select is by having kids, right?
No, because some people are not going to have the resources to have kids. That's a different kind of selection pressure than sexual selection.
So they're not going to be selected,
Yeah.
right?
So that's there you go. You're getting close to getting it.
Well, yeah, you're getting close to getting it because you have to have kids to select for anything.
Hey, Snake, I think maybe they're talking past each other here. You want to try to break this down?
I mean,
Well,
there's
here's
positive
one
selection,
thing.
which sexual selection is a form of positive selection, and there's negative selection, which would be dying or not being able to have kids.
Well, here's the thing. Jungle doesn't know. I don't think you know that. Jungle, do you know that Neanderthal is not a evolutionary transitional to humans, right?
No,
They
it's
would
not
consider-
nothing. It's human. It's human. It's
No,
Eurasian.
It's not a evolutionary transitional. They would say it's
Well,
like a sister
it would
clade.
be human. Anything in the genus Homo is a human.
Wow. No,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's an ancient human that went
Yeah,
extinct.
they
and
would
it's a
say
good
it's a
thing.
cousin.
It's
Yeah,
a
okay,
good
Bubble.
thing.
It's near
This is the
human.
But it's a
closest I've
sample.
ever. Hold
It's a
on,
sample
Jungle.
of
This is the
ancient
closest
humans.
I've ever come to almost agreeing with Bubble. The only thing I would say is that what you mean is Homo sapien, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not Homo sapiens, but they are humans because they're a member of the Homo
That's
genus.
semantics. That's semantics.
Well, I
They
know,
are
but I
humans.
almost did agree with Bumble there. I
classification,
just want to
though.
point that out. That was
Yeah, if you wanna
They're
I'm not being too
ancient
technical, but
humans,
yes. if you wanna
and
be-
they're Eurasian humans. They're Eurasians.
That's the thing. This whole they're human is based on on an evolutionary precept.
Well, no, we have their
No.
DNA, right? We have
Humans
the
were-
Neanderthal genome. Wait, Jungle, hold on one second, then I'll let you talk. We have the Neanderthal genome sequence now. That was what the guy like Svante Pablo last year won the Nobel Prize for. We know that Neanderthal genomes do not cluster within Homo sapien genomes. Like we know that they are separate. So they are not Homo sapiens.
It's a
Yeah.
separate population, but they're human.
Here's the
It's a
thing:
human
Jungle
population.
has to push this because of his biblical
And-
view. Wait, hold up,
And
Jungle.
it's a Eurasian population.
Hold up,
It's
Jungle.
not Semitic and it's not African. It's a Eurasian
Do you know
population.
Dr. Fuzz-Rana? Do you know Dr. Fuzz-Rana, Jungle?
I've seen
He-
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he would say that the Homo was
Well,
Neanderthals weren't made
he's
in the
an
image of
old
God.
earther. He's an old earther.
Well, he would say because he understands the problem here, and
He's
that's
an
what
old
he
earther.
says. Yeah, but he understands the
No,
problem
but
here.
there's all the humans that they're finding were.
But he gets the
were-
problem.
are post-flood humans.
Look, he
We're
gets
not
the
talking
problem.
about-
He admits that they're not made in the image of God, and that's how he gets around it.
Yeah,
No,
I also want to ask. So, if you think that
that's totally
Neanderthals,
off the
if
wall.
you
That's
think
totally
that
off the wall.
Neanderthals are post-flood, then and yet they're genetically so distinct from all of the other kinds of Homo sapiens, I just want to ask. So, do you believe in some kind of like super evolution? Because that would only be like
No,
there would only be
devolution.
a couple hundred years like that you would need to develop an entire Neanderthal race. So,
No,
how could that
that would
possibly have
be and we're talking about genetic entropy. We're talking about losing characteristics
Wait.
that
But
the
you just said that the
Neanderthals have.
Neanderthals were superior. You're not saying that they were degraded
Because
compared
they're
to us.
more because they are more original. They had the more
Original.
original human genome. They're ancient humans. That's what ancient humans used to be like.
So
So
Adam
then
and Eve
why
looked
don't
like
we
So
nest
Neanderthals.
genetically? Why do we
I
not nest within
refuse to
Neanderthals?
believe God looked like that. I refuse to believe that God
We
looked like some
we don't.
weird of a malformation.
No,
So wait, yeah,
you're
you
way
worship a
behind the times,
Neanderthal
Pablo.
god?
You're way behind the times. They were smarter, stronger,
There
So
is
faster,
wait,
no
jungle,
evidence for that.
because
Sure,
Neanderthals
stronger.
are
more
more
able
original.
in every way
Okay,
than we
so
are.
so because Neanderthals are more original, they are closer to being made in the image of God than we are. So you worship a Neanderthal god. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, you're just speaking gibberish.
No, that's what you are saying, Jungle. So
No,
I
I'm
mean,
saying
I refuse that.
all I no. If we were created and not evolved, then you should expect to see a bigger, better, badder human being than what we are.
so we don't just have
No.
we don't just have the brains
It
of
has nothing to
Neanderthals.
do with worship.
Hold on, we don't just have the brains of Neanderthal though. We also have the stuff that they made and the things that they left behind. And we actually have a lot of that, like artifacts and stuff, that does show that while they were pretty advanced, especially as far as among all the species of Homo, but they were not as advanced as our species. So we're
Well,
not degraded from them when we can see that
because
their
they're
culture and artifacts were less advanced than ours.
only because they're an offshoot that was separated from the humans that were building megaliths.
So
why do you think that Homo sapiens outcompeted Neanderthals and pushed them all the way to like, Gibraltar and the Central Asia, like that, the periphery? Why did Homo sapiens, why were we so much like, why were we able to muscle them out if they were so much superior to us?
No, they just mutated themselves to oblivion. I think their Y chromosome stopped working or something.
Wait, you're saying that they mutated
Bigger?
themselves, but then you're also saying that we are more mutant than they are. I mean, this is not consistent.
No, I'm saying it simplifies. The genome simplifies,
But yet they
and
have
it
a bigger
doesn't
genome than we do.
because of the simplification. We're losing function, and our genome is being simplified all the time, and we're
Yes,
losing
but
genetic
you just said
information.
that Neanderthals have a bigger genome, and now you're saying that they went extinct because they got too simplified and degraded.
Grayson,
No,
I think he
because-
thinks it's latter. I
because
think
they
he's,
Not consistent at
interbred.
all.
It's because
think
they
he's-
interbred and they didn't have the diversity that they needed or the population needed to maintain their, viability.
let me see if I can't steel man this. So I think Grayson, I think what he's saying is that Neanderthals are humans' direct ancestor. So
No.
we are the degraded.
No, we are
Neanderthals.
not directly. We are not They don't have. Nobody living today has a Neanderthal Y chromosome. We are not descended from Neanderthals. They're
Okay, maybe I
they're
misunderstood what you were saying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
That's what
misrepresent you.
SMT says. I agree with them. I think. I mean, that's what I would say.
Yeah, they're an offshoot branch of humans, but they were
Were
original.
Neanderthals ancestors
They were
humans?
more original than what we are. We're like many thousands of years
So-
later.
Are
Okay, Jungle,
Neanderthals
what
you-
descendants from Adam and Eve, though? Are they?
And-
That's the thing,
different?
Jungle. You would have to say that humans
But
are derivative or something akin to Neanderthal.
But there's more things
Right.
involved. We live in a different atmosphere than what the creation was. Neanderthals lived after the flood, but they were closer to the original creation and the more original genome than what we are.
Yeah, but you're
Even
still
though,
saying that humans are derivative of something that looked like Neanderthal.
Right. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no, Neanderthals are more similar to have more in common with Eurasians than Semitics and Africans. So that means that Neanderthals were an offshoot of Eurasians.
Couldn't that just mean that they
Or
interbred with Eurasians?
Well, that's an interpretation that's a claim or a theory that they have. Yeah, but
Yeah, but I mean, do you have a refutation for that, or you acknowledge
well,
that's a possibility, or?
well, the refutation would be that we know what the civilizations were from the global flood. We know all of the ancient civilizations and who they were, and we have their haplogroups today, living today.
Like, I think you could just say that to get out of this, I think you could just say that Neanderthal is probably a product of the Nephilim. That's
No,
the only way I can see you getting out of this.
no, no, no. They were humans just like we were, because we
Nephilim were
obviously
huge.
were able to interbreed with them.
Yeah, so the
It's-
Nephilim.
But it's just no, bubblegum. Be serious. It's
Yeah,
just
look,
that
you're proposing
if
something
it's something like it's something like 10,
radical to me.
10 or 20 generations, you no longer have the genetic information of your answer. It's all new genetic information after so many generations. You're not
Bubbles just talking about Genesis here, though. I mean, that's Genesis about the Nephilim.
right, but that's nonsense. Nephilim is just
Because
big giants.
we're talking about the image of God. And if you're going to tell me that God looked like that, I'm going to say absolutely no.
Look like what?
Then a Neanderthal.
And you think they look bad? They were
Absolutely.
smart. They were smarter. They were sharper. They had better vision, better smell, stronger than you
How were
To
they
me,
smarter if they
and
didn't have?
the rest of us too, because our genome is acclimating to the environment that we're in, and we just got skinny and tall and skinny and slanky and whatever,
But they're
bigger
not.
doesn't mean
or
better.
fat.
They weren't necessarily smarter though. They because they like again they didn't their technology wasn't as good as ours. Even the contemporary people were
That's
more
irrelevant.
advanced than the Neanderthals.
Technology is irrelevant.
Even
Technology
people
is
who
just
evolved who were working in Africa evolved tool use tens of thousands of years before Neanderthals did. I mean, there's
well. You're placing an age on the
on
people that moved to Africa, but everybody is from the calendars are only 5,000 years old. Everybody's descended from all the ancient civilizations are from less than 5,000 years ago.
I disagree.
no,
You
not
can disagree
Neanderthals.
all you
Neanderthals
want,
are
but they're
from
all we know what all the ancient civilizations were.
Well, Egypt was unified more than 5,000 years ago.
Egypt is Mitzrayim, descendants of Mitzrayim.
That is
We
a
know who they
meaningless
are.
statement to me.
Yeah, to you because you don't know ancient history.
I do know ancient history.
No, you
I
don't.
don't know your
You have
biblical.
how many ancient?
Claims.
Name some ancient civilizations for me. Then, how many ancient civilizations can you name?
I can name quite a lot. The
No.
This
Sumerians,
isn't
the
going anywhere,
No.
Akkadians,
Jungle.
the
Sumerians not an ancient civilization.
Babylonians.
Egyptians, the Hittites.
Hittite is like a Canaanite tribe.
Okay, what about the
So were
Kukulcani
the Israelites.
culture in
No, one at
Ukraine?
a time. One at a time.
Yeah, what about the
Israelite is
Kukulcani Tripili culture of Ukraine? That is very ancient, much more than 5,000 years ago, and they had proto cities.
yeah, but they were already spread out from. It's either Gomer or Magog or
These are just
descendants.
meaningless terms to me.
Yeah, they're
Any-
meaningless because you
anyways, I
don't know
just
ancient
wanted to
civilizations.
tell Snake because Snake wanted to have a conversation. So yeah, I just came here to set up a date. Jump off in a little while.
Go ahead.
We can do it anytime. I got your email, so
Okay. What about this Saturday? Is that good for you?
no.
All right, you give me a date then. Because
Yeah,
this Friday.
this weekend I got some stuff going on, but we'll get
Snake,
together soon.
just so you know,
About
he's
next Friday?
going to ask you what was the transition from a
Oh, he
wolf
knows.
to a
Already
dog.
did. Already did, and he did worse than you somehow.
I was actually surprised when I heard that that claim. So, and your claim is that dogs and wolves can't interbreed too. Am I right?
No,
They can't, or that's not your claim.
that's not my claim.
Okay, and I misunderstood it. Then I'm glad to hear that because that's
Well,
that is
some
demonstrable.
species of dogs cannot interbreed with wolves, but
Yeah, in general.
Yeah, of canids. Yeah,
like the African painted
like
dog,
Kaon,
or there are a
yeah,
few of them that
painted
can't. I think
dogs,
there's a South
gulls,
American dog that can't. I mean, there's like a spattering of them.
bush dogs.
It's biology. There's always exceptions to everything.
But those aren't in the same. Yeah,
Well,
those are in different.
even life
groups too.
is accepted to like literally everything in any field.
All right, well,
what
I
about next
think
Friday?
that I'm going to close it down here. It's getting pretty late here in my time zone, but I want to thank everyone that was a part of the panel. Praise, thanks for you were here. You were the only creationist for a while, so thanks, and thanks for everyone for. I think everyone kind of kept it cordial. There wasn't too much interruption there, so I'm appreciative for that. Somebody brought up Nephilim Free in the comments, so I just want to plug that, yes, I will be doing a debate with Nephilim Free. I believe it's scheduled on SFT's channel for like March 1st or something like that. And then I've got a debate coming up with T-Rock on the Age of the Earth, also on SFT's channel. And I have my first debate on Modern Day Debates coming up on Big Bang Cosmology, tag team with Leo Phileas. So got a lot of exciting debates coming up, so stay tuned. Subscribe if you're not, and I'll let if Hive Science wants to plug our channel, or Snake or Praise or anybody, you can go ahead and do so.
No, I'm good, man. I'm just going to head out, but thanks for your hospitality. You're a cool dude, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, and I want to also debate Praise on that quantum information and minds and simulations and stuff as well. I forgot to plug that, so look forward to that, Praise.
Oh, I am, man. You're gonna bring it, so I'm gonna have to really study. So take care, and God bless everyone.
Yeah. I got a show on Saturday that I do every Saturday morning called Live from the Hive. If you want to come hang out and talk about I think this weekend we're talking about aliens, so that'll be fun. And then on Monday I'm going to be on Skeptic Haven with some pretty cool people like Dr. Josh Bowen and Arn Ra are going to be there, and a few other people. It's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, looking forward to that.
All right.
Base theory. Are you into physics, or you like to discuss physics?
Yeah, I love physics.
Because
in middle school, I wanted to be a physicist.
Because I wanted to have a discussion in physics and genetics, the haplogroups as well.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely do that.
And or geology, the breakup of the continents after the global flood, 100 years.
Okay, sure. I mean, wide-ranging topics, but all very interesting. So I'm sure that, we'll go ahead and email me for like the specifics of which, and we can set something up. So my email is on my channel on my About page. Anyone can find my email if they want to, debate on a topic. Just go ahead and shoot me an email, and we'll get something set up.
Okay.
Cool. Snake, anything you want to say, or we call it a night?
No, it was good. I got some good additions to my tactics for next time on Genetic Entropy, and thanks for having me on, and yeah,
Sweet.
good to
Well,
talk
thanks
to y'all.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, bye.
Yeah, great. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Night.